וקיימנו והגיענו בזמן הזה. ברוכים הבאים לחגיגת העשור של בית חב"ד רחביה בנחלאות בירושלים. Welcome everyone to the celebration of the 10th anniversary of Chabad Of Rechavia נחלאות in Yerushalayim. הערב אנחנו מצדיעים לפעילות בית חב"ד רחביה במשך קרוב ל10 שנים. החל משיעורי תורה, פעילות עם הילדים, חגים סביב השנה, עזה זזה, ליל הסדר ענק עם 350 איש, סעודות שבת כל שבת, אתר חדש ברשת, התוועדויות, גם מעון ילדים, ובעיקר המשכן החדש שלנו, רחוב המלך ג'ורג' 52 שרכשנו לאחרונה. This evening we pay tribute to the accomplishments of Chabad Of Rechavia over the past 10 years. You may be familiar with some of the programs that we have done over the years, like Purim Azazaza, Shabbat and Chagim popular minyanim, and Shabbat meals. The largest Pesach Seder in Israel, with around 350 people, 1,600 followers on Facebook, and a very popular website, JerusalemChabad.org, adult education, and much more. זה לא במקרה שאנחנו חוגגים את העשור שלנו ביום ז' בחשוון. התהליך הזה קשור לבית חב"ד ולכל בתי חב"ד. היום התחלנו לברך ותן, טל ומטר לברכה. מדוע מחכים שבועיים להתחיל לומר את זה, ולא להתחיל כבר בשמחת תורה כשמתחילים משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, נכון? משום שמחכים, כן, מחכים לאחרון של ישראל שהגיע הביתה אחרי עלייה לרגל ולא ייתקע בגשם. רק אז כולם יכולים להתחיל לבקש גשם מאת השם יתברך. By divine providence, this celebration is taking place on the 7th of the Hebrew month of Cheshvan. This is the day that we begin praying to Hashem to grant us rain here in Israel. Why did we not begin this tefillah on Simchat Torah over here where we started to say Mashiv HaRuach V'Morad HaGeshem? The reason is because in the days when we had a Beit HaMikdash and Am Yisrael would come for Sukkot from all over the world, it would take up to 2 weeks for the person who lived the furthest away to return home. If all of us, Am Yisrael, would begin asking for rain right after Simchat Torah, then the people that are traveling home would get stuck in the rain and in the mud. Therefore, all of Am Yisrael would wait for them to reach home, and only then begin to daven for rain. נשאלת שאלה פשוטה, מדוע לעכב ברכת הגשם עבור כל עם ישראל ועבור כמה יהודים בודדים שגרים להם במקומות רחוקים? הרי רוב רובם של עם ישראל היו צריכים גשם מיד בשביל צורכי פרנסה. אלא הרבי מסביר שמכאן אנחנו לומדים עד כמה צריך להיות האכפתיות שלנו כלפי כל יהודי כפשוטו. חז"ל תיקנו שכולם, כל עם ישראל, צריכים לחכות ולבקש כשתי ברכה, ובלבד שאפילו יהודי אחד לא ינזק, ואפילו לא יהיה לו קצת אי נעימות. An obvious question can arise. Why does all of Am Yisrael have to wait for this one person who's so far away? Doesn't Am Yisrael here in Eretz Yisrael need rain? It's no big deal. A couple of people take them a little longer. They'll take an extra few weeks to get home. So the Rebbe explains an amazing point. That this is who we are. Am Yisrael, we care about every single person. And yes, even if there's only one person who lives many miles away, and that person might be hurt by having to travel in the rain and bad weather, and even if it's a little bit not so comfortable for the person, we all are going to wait to ask Hashem for rain until this person is at ease. This is a special message that is very much connected to Chabad houses around the world. The Rebbe teaches us how much we have to care for every single person. And today, some of my friends, shluchim, that are going out to different places in the world, there are barely 50 Jews, 100 Jews, and so on and so forth. The idea is that we have to care for every single person. And even if one person is having trouble, we still have to take care of that person. פותחים בדבר מלכות. שושי ואני מתרגשים כל יום מהזכות העצומה שנפלה בחלקנו להיות שלוחים של הרבי מלובביץ' כאן בשכונות רחביה ונחלאות. כחלק מספר מאות משפחות השלוחים כן ירבו כאן בארץ ואלפי משפחות השלוחים בכל העולם. ובזה אנחנו לוקחים חלק חשוב בהכנת העולם לקבל פני משיח צדקנו. אנחנו מציינים עכשיו את השלוחים של ירושלים שנמצאים כאן, ושלוחים מכל הארץ, יש כמה שלוחים כאן, וזה מאוד חשוב לנו שהשלוחים נמצאים. Shoshi and I thank Hashem every day for the great zechut of being shluchim of the Rebbe, especially in Yerushalayim. Zechut gedola hi בשבילי להזמין את השליח הראשי של ארץ ישראל, ארצנו הקדושה, הרב יוסף יצחק הכהן אהרונוב, להקריא מכתב של הרבי, שהרבי כתב בשנת תשי"ט לקהילת בית הכנסת אהבת ציון, לחגיגה לכבוד 10 שנים מאז שהרב שלהם, הרב שלום ברגורדן זיכרונו לברכה, שליח של הגדול הרייץ מהרב שלהם. It is a great honor for me to invite the head shliach of the entire Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Aharonov, to read a letter from the Rebbe from 1959, where the Rebbe writes his brachas and blessings to congregation Ahavat Zion, I like that, Ahavat Zion, in Newark, New Jersey, in honor of the 10th anniversary, in honor of the 10th anniversary of the Rabbi, Rabbi Shlomo Bar Gordon, in blessed memory, he became the Rabbi, and this is the letter that the Rebbe read for the Rabbi Aharonov.
ערב טוב. זה מכתב שכותב ביידיש, ואני רוצה לתקן את זה בעברית. והרבי כותב, כמו שאמר, הרב שלכם כאן, מנהל עליו, הוא אומר שזה מכתב בדיוק שהגיע מישהו שבאמת שהם חיכו 10 שנים, אז הוא כותב ככה: שלום וברכה, שמחתי מאוד לקבל הזמנה לחגיגה שאתם מתכננים לרגל יובל העשור, מיד שמיניתם את הרב החשוב שלכם. הרב כבר מזכיר את שמו, הרב אומר, כבוד שאתם מעניקים לרב, נותן לי את התקווה הראויה שתתמכו בו גם בהמשך ביתר שאת וביתר עוז. לתמוך בו בעבודתו במטרת בית הכנסת שלכם, שיהיה בית של תורה, עבודה ודתה. לחזק את חיי תורה בעירכם כולה, שזהו הכלל גדול בתורה, ואהבת ולאחר כמוך. זהו גם הפירוש המילה סנטר, מרכז, הנקודה הפנימית של כל הסביבה, שהרי בלי סביבה אין מרכז, ובלי מרכז אין סביבה. לכן מאוד חשוב שהסביבה תהיה מתאימה למרכז, ושהמרכז יהיה מיוסד על 3 עמודים שעליהם העולם עומד: תורה, עבודה, שזו תפילה וגמילות חסדים צדקה, שעל גימל יסודות אלו עומד כל העולם כולו, גם העולם הגדול וגם העולם הקטן, זה האדם, העולם של כל יחיד. אני מאחל לכם וגם הרב שלכם הרבה שנים של עבודה ביחד ושל חיזוק 3 יסודות של הקהילה שלכם ושל עירכם בכלל, שהשם יתברך יברך אתכם בברכה והצלחה, החייל וחייל, בגשמיות וברוחניות גם יחד, בכבוד ובברכה, ואני חותם את סביבת נקודת המשך.
פותחים בכבוד אכסניה. מאז שהגענו לשכונת רחביה בנחלאות, התיידדנו מאוד עם הנהלת בית הכנסת ישורון. ומאז אנחנו מקיימים כמה וכמה אירועים מכובדים כאן בבית הכנסת כל שנה. One of the first events of Chabad Of Rechavia was held right here in the YESHURUN Central Synagogue. That event was in memory of Rabbi Gabi and Rivki Holzberg soon after their murder in Mumbai. By the way, Moshe Holzberg will be celebrating his bar mitzvah in just a few days. Ever since then, we are grateful to Bet Knesset YESHURUN for welcoming us into the shul a few times a year. It is my It is my sincere honor and pleasure to present a masterpiece of art on Jerusalem stone to the shul in honor of the leadership of this amazing shul YESHURUN, in appreciation for their kindness and generosity. This magnificent artwork is of Kriyat Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea. May Hashem shine upon this shul, the leadership of the shul, and everyone here, the great revelations that He showed us at Kriyat Yamsuf. אני מבקש להזמין את רב גדליה שרייבר, יושב ראש בית כנסת, רב אברהם זקס, רב דיוויד ברגר, רב ישראל פולק. בבקשה לבוא. אנחנו מודים לאלו שקדמו אותם כאן ברחביה. לפני שנים, הרב יחיאל אבא קוזלובסקי, זיכרונו לברכה, ולהיבדל לחיים טובים ארוכים, הרב אהרון הורוביץ שיחיה, ועוד הרבה משפחות שהשקיעו בפעילות ברוכות במשך עשרות שנים. אתם סללתם את הדרך בשבילנו, ולזה יש לנו הכרת הטוב עמוקה. We deeply appreciate those that were shown here before we came to Rechavia, like Rabbi Aaron Horowitz and others that did great outreach activities. We stand upon your shoulders. A big round of applause. שושי ואני מביעים בהורינו היקרים שיחיו הכרת הטוב עמוקה על חינוך המקסים שהענקתם לנו וממשיכים לתת למשפחתנו בעזרת השם לאורך ימים ושנים טובות. Thank you, Tati and Mami, for coming from Toronto, especially for this event. בדיוק לפני 7 שנים, כאשר תוך זמן קצר, התחנת הרוח, אתם זוכרים את זה? remember את התחנה? נהיה צר מדי למניין בית חב"ד רחביה בשבת. פניתי לרב אשר שפירו בשעתו, בבקשה לעמוד כבוד הרב הראשי ראשון לציון, בבקשה לעמוד, please rise to the chief rabbi בירושלים, בכבוד רב. מאז ועד היום השתתפות של הקהילה התרחבה ברוך השם וממשיכה לגדול. אנחנו חייבים לכם הכרת הטוב ענקית. Exactly 7 years ago, I approached Mr. Asher Shapiro. At the time, he was the chairman of the board of the Great Synagogue of Jerusalem. And I asked him if he and the board would grant us permission to kindly daven every Shabbat and Chagim in the Beit Knesset HaGadol, the Beit Midrash area. Mr. Shapiro and Mr. Jaffe were tremendously gracious and generous by granting us permission to daven every Shabbos in the Great Synagogue. I am going to receive a gift on their behalf. It is my sincere honor and pleasure to present a masterpiece of art on Jerusalem stone to the Shul, the Great Synagogue, in honor of the leadership of the Great Synagogue and appreciation for their kindness and generosity. This magnificent artwork is an oil painting of Kiryat Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea on Jerusalem stone. May Hashem shine upon the Shul, the leadership of the Shul, and everyone in Yerushalayim, the great revelations that Hashem showed upon us. A big round of applause for the Great Synagogue. כבוד גדול הוא לנו שנמצא איתנו כבוד הראשון לציון, הרב הראשי בירושלים והרב הראשי לארץ ישראל לשעבר, הרב אומר שפעם הרב ראשי תמיד, הרב הגאון הרב משה שלמה אמר שליטה ואמר דברי ברכה. בהזדמנות זו, הנני להזכיר בהערכה שיש רבנים חשובים שנמצאים כאן מהשכונה ומירושלים. הרב אמר למד בצעירותו בישיבת חב"ד במרוקו, ונמצא בקשר הדוק עם בתי חב"ד כאן בארץ ובעולם. כבוד הרב מוערך מאוד, וזה כבוד גדול עבורנו שהרב נענה לבקשתנו לכבד את הקהל הקדוש הזה בדברי ברכה לכבוד בית חב"ד רחביה. Please rise as we welcome the Chief Rabbi of Yerushalayim, the former Chief Rabbi of Eretz Yisrael, Harav Shlomo Amar, which will deliver to us the words of bracha.
של בית חב"ד ברחביה, שיעריך אליו בטוב ונערים. בכל הקהל הקדוש, כולם אוהבים, כולם ברוכים לשם. כי לשם מצאו כארץ, וישת עליהם תבל. זה הפסוק. אומר, כי לשם מצאו כארץ. מי הם מצאו כארץ? אומרים רבותינו, בגמרא הצדיקים, מצאו כארץ. הם מעמידים את כל הארץ, הם מעמידים את כל העולם, את כל היקום. אם לא בניתי יומם ולילה, רוחות שמיים בארץ לא שם. התורה מעמידה את הכל. בראשית ברא אלוקים את השמיים ואת הארץ. בשביל ראשית, שזה התורה, השם חנן ראשית התורה. בשביל ישראל, שהם ראשית תבואתו של השם. בשבילם ובזכותם ברא את העולם, והם מקיימים את העולם. מצאו כארץ אלו הצדיקים, ראה הקדוש ברוך הוא שהצדיקים מועטים, עמל ושתלם בכל דור. בכל דור, לפי הצורך שלו, נתן איזה צדיק מאותם מצאו כארץ, שהוא ינהיג את הדור, שהוא יעמיד את הדור על עומדו. זכינו בדור שלנו ליהודו לעולם. זכינו בדור שלנו היה האדמו"ר מלובביץ' שהנהיג במקום שבטו, הנהיג בעולם. עשה פעולות שאי אפשר לתאר, שאדם אחד יכול להקיף ולחמוק זרועות עולם. תבל ומנועה, שלח שליחים בכל מקום בעולם. אין מקום שיש שם שליח או כמה שליחים. אין מקום שאין בו בית חב"ד, והכל מכוחו ומכוח כוחו של האדמו"ר, שהוא היה עומד בגודלו ומדריך אותם ומנהיג אותם ומשפיע עליהם שפע של קדושתם, ומתוך שהם היו קשורים ודבוקים בו, המשיכו וממשיכים עד היום בדרך. ויש גם בארץ ישראל שהיא מלאה חכמים וסופרים, יש מקום גדול להוסיף עוד כהנה וכהנה רבנים, עוסקים ודרשנים, והשלוחים גם בארץ עושים פעולות נפלאות. לא רק בירושלים, לא רק בבני ברק, לא רק בתל אביב וחיפה, בכל קיבוץ, בכל מושב, בכל שכונה, והפעילות שלהם ניכרת, כי הם באים מכוחו של האדם הגדול והענקי. רבנו מנחם בן שניאורסון, זכותו יגן עליכם ועלינו ועל כל ישראל לכם. ומכוחו הם ממשיכים בפעילות הגדולה. אבל אין פינה בעולם שמקומות שגילולי בית חב"ד לא היה מקום ליהודי שמגיע שם לשמוע מה זה כשרות, מה זה שופר בראש השנה, מה זה תפילת יום הכיפורים ומה זה שבת. הזדמנתי, כשאמרנו לרב, הזדמנתי בהרבה מקומות. יש מקומות שהייתי שם, פעם הייתי בשבת בתאילנד, יושבים מאות אורחים רובם בארץ ישראל צעירים שהולכים בשביל לטייל, ובטיולים האלה הרבה פעמים הם עובדים לנו, פוגשים כל מיני כיתות וכל מיני דברים שמסיתים אותם לדרכים רחוקות, לדרכים זרות לעם ישראל, זרות לתורת ישראל. והקשר היחידי ששומר עליהם זה בית חב"ד. גם אם כל השבוע הם רצים בשבת אלוהים, ישבו שם אולי 600, אולי 700, בחולים ובחולות, כולם אכלו סעודה של שבת. והרב שם היה נותן לכל אחד לומר איזה דבר, או דבר תורה, או סיפור, או שיר, או כל מה שהוא רוצה לומר, כל מה שעולה עליו. בסבלנות כמעט על כל הבוקר, ליל שבת, וככה בכל מקום, בסין, באוסטרליה, בדרום אפריקה, אין מקום. והדברים ידועים אני לא מחדש בזה, ועל כן, החידוש הוא שגם במקום כזה, בליבה של ירושלים, גם כן יש מקום בזה. יש הרבה תורה, יש הרבה קדושה, אבל הפעילות המיוחדת, הנעימות שבה הם עובדים, היופי, האהדה, הגישה המיוחדת, מאהיבים את שם השם ואהבת את השם אלוקיך, להאהיב את השם אלוקיך על מיליותיו, ובזה הם עושים. פעם במבצע כזה, פעם במבצע אחרת. פעם לחנוכה, אני אספר לכם סיפור של 2 דקות. לפני שנים רבות, למעלה אולי קרוב ל-40 שנה, הזדמנתי לצרפת, והייתי בשטרסבורג, והכרתי שם בחור, שהייתי צריך להגיע, לא אומר לי, אני כאן, אני רוצה לדבר איתך קצת, אני כאן. יש לו מכונית ולקח. היה שלג חזק, והתחלנו לשיר. יש לו קול מאוד יפה. אני, כפי שאתם שומעים, אני צרוד מאוד. אבל התחלתי, והוא נתן בקולו, קול מיוחד. שרנו שיר אחד. כשהגענו לשיר אחד, הוא אלוקינו, מה שאומרים בכתר, הוא אוהבינו ומלכנו, ניגון של הרב. אני אז שמעתי מהשיר התחלתי, הוא התחיל לשיר, ואז הוא פרץ בכי גדול, התחיל לבכות. כל כך היה בכי חזק, שהוא לא יכל להמשיך לנסוע. עצר את המכונית, ועמד ובכה, ושר ובכה, הוא אבינו ומלכנו. אחרי שנרגע, שאלתי אותו, הבכי הזה על מי ואמר, מה קרה? אמר לי, השיר הזה החזיר אותי בתשובה. ואז הוא סיפר, הוא היה זמר מפורסם בשטרסבורג. הוא בכלל לא ידע שהוא יהודי. ידע, אבל חשב שזה סתם איזה איזה דבר נקרי. והיה חי גויה, והיה לו עושר גדול, וכולם הזמינו אותו. ואנשי חב"ד עשו בימי החופש הגדול של התלמידים, עשו להם קטנה, עשו גן שישמעו את זה. וכדי למשוך את ההורים שיבואו וישמעו וישמעו את בניהם, הביאו את הזמן הזה, הוא היה הכי קבוצה בסדר. המון אנשים באו מאלוהים בשביל לשמוע את הזמן. בתוך כדי המסיבה הזאת עלו כמה מחסידי חב"ד שהיו פעילים. ושם קשים הוא אוויר ומרכיב. הוא יש לו חוש מוזיקלי גבוה ודק ועדין, והשיר הזה מצא חן בעיניו. הוא אמר, לא שמעתי כמו השיר הזה. התחיל לשיר איתה. אחרי יומיים שלושה הוא מחפש את השליח שהזמין אותו. במאמצים גדולים גילה אותו. אמר לו, מה אתה רוצה? אמר, אני רוצה שתחזור לי בשיר הזה, שכחתי אותו. אמר לו, איזה שיר? הרבה שירים שם. אמר לו, תעשי אותו, אני מוכן לשלם לך את הזמן שלך. אני אבוא לך, תשאיר כל מיני שירים, אני כבר יודע את השיר. התחיל להגיד מפרץ סטייל, התחיל להגיד כל מיני שירים. הוא אומר, לא זה, עד שהוא אמר לי, הוא אבינו, וזה התחיל לקבוץ ולקבוץ. והקליט את זה, הוא אומר לו, מאז אני לא מפסיק לשיר. ועזבתי את הגויה ואת כל המקצוע שלו של זמן, ושלח לי הזמנה שהוא מתחתן עם בת חסידית מבית רבקה בפריז. חזר לתשובה שלמה בזכות מנגינה אחת, בזכות פעולה אחת שעושים בנעימות ואהבה. יהיה השם עמכם, יוסף עליכם ככם 1000 פעמים, גם ברכות לכל הקהל הקדוש, וברככם השם לציון, וראו בטוב ירושלים כל ימי חייכם, אמן ואמן.
לשמוע את מקהלת רבותיים בניצוחו של ריצ'רד שבי ציון ובליווי מוזיקלי של ריימן גולדסטיין עם סולו אורח חזן נתנאל לוביצקי. Founded by director Richard Shabbat Zion, Jerusalem's Rabbtai men's choir sing with the great chazanim of the generation and artists of other genres. Over the past 25 years, they have been entertaining crowds with their wide range of music. We thank Raymond Goldstein for accompanying the choir with the piano. The choir soloist this evening is Cantor Netanel Lovitsky. A round of applause for the choir. Many of you have been with us for the past 10 years. Many of you have joined us in the middle sometime. And some of you are here today for the first time. I admire so much the unique relationships that my family have formed with this amazing community all along. On this special evening, I want to show my deepest appreciation and admiration to one individual who has been and continues to be an extraordinary support to Chabad Of Rechavia in so many ways. Often, we speak several times a day. In fact, in a large way, even this event is thanks to him. Please give a round of applause to Moshe Zalman Olive. Please come up for a special gift. Thank you so much for being who you are, for all your advice and support, and moreover, for your true friendship. A beautiful letter-bound Tehillim with your name on it. B'vakasha. We thank all of our donors, and especially the donors of our recent building fund. And we especially recognize today that there are Aaron and Natalie Weber, the main donors of our building fund, right over here. B'vakasha, please give Mr. Weber and Mrs. Weber a big round of applause. We began a campaign called Chabad Tomorrow, giving people an opportunity to leave a living will and testament. And in fact, what an amazing zechut to be able to leave a gift for Chabad Of Rechavia for after 120 years. To see that the great success of 10 years of Chabad Of Rechavia is only the beginning. And Bezrat Hashem, there are many, many years ahead. One of our dear friends came forward and has left a gift for Chabad Of Rechavia. I asked Mr. Chanoch Rubel to please come up. Big round of applause. Kol hakavod. Here's a beautiful Tehillim, leather-bound, it says Chanoch Rubel. Chanoch, thank you so much for leaving a monetary gift for Chabad Of Rechavia in Jerusalem. May you live till 180 and beyond, happy and healthy years, and may others follow in your footsteps. Okay, for the video promo, this needs no introduction. B'vakasha l'chabot ha'or, kama dakot, a short video of Chabad Of Rechavia. Please close the lights. Beautiful video. We've invested a lot of effort into putting together this powerful video. Can you please close the lights? Eli נמצא כאן? איזה עוצמה זה לך. Is Risa here? בבקשה. תודה, ריסה, יש לנו קשרים. צריך פרוטקציה פה. בעזרת השם, just a couple of moments. נמצא? בבקשה, אות הזוי. איך אומרים אות הזוי בעברית? תתחיל מההתחלה. אחי? הלו?
מציבים דוכן להנחת תפילין, ב6 שעות מנסים להציע לאנשים להניח תפילין, ואף אחד לא היה מסתכל עליכם. אני הייתי מתייאש, הורס את החפצים שלי, ובאותו יום חוזר למקום ממנו באתי. לפני 10 שנים עמדתי כאן במקום הזה, וראיתי את השליח החדש לרחביה, הרב ישראל גולדברג, מציב שולחן קטן, ומנסה בחיוך להציע לאנשים להניח תפילין במקום שליחותו החדש. ואף אחד לא הסתכל עליו, 6 שעות. אבל שבוע לאחר מכן הוא שוב חזר עם השולחן, וגם בשבוע שלאחר מכן, וכך 10 שנים. בית חב"ד רחביה חוגג עשור של פעילות. מה אנחנו בעצם יודעים על בית חב"ד? בואו ניכנס פנימה.
ברוך הבא.
וואו, 10 שנים. שיעורים, תפילות, חינוך, פעילות עם נשים, בניין חדש, עזה, קבלה קפה, סטודנטים.
זה לא יותר אותנטי לשמוע את זה מאנשים בעצמם?
My name is Mark Halawa. I was born and raised in Kuwait. What brings big joy to my heart when I pass by the area of Chabad of Rechavia and I see a big sign across the street that says, Shamarna lecha kiseh, we have saved you a chair, we have saved you a seat. I mean, who says that? Who does that? It makes me smile. It makes me smile and just turn my plans towards Chabad. The choice for going Chabad is like second nature, because Chabad is always there.
סעודות השבת מתקיימות פה בחב"ד רחביה בירושלים. באים המון אנשים ולא חסר כלום. להיות יחד, להרגיש חגיגיות.
אני יודע שיש תמיד איזה דבר תורה או דברי תורה ושולן טוב שאנשים מהקהילה מכינים.
הפעילות שלנו בעיקר מתעסקת עם כל מה שקשור לסעודות שבת, עם לתת לחבר'ה צעירים הסטודנטים פה טעימה מהיהדות, מלגות, שמחה.
Whether it's YESHURUN for adults in the evening, whether it's Shacharis in the morning, whether it's kids activities for Lag BaOmer or Sukkot, whether it's donut making, whether it's handing out gifts for Purim, whether it's going from cafe to cafe, reading the Megillah, there's one thing that you can rest assured of, and that is there's no one busier than the Rabbi and his Rebbetzin and his children when it comes to bringing happiness and joy and spirituality to this community.
We are about to open now Hashem's Torah. We are about to begin learning Hashem's infinite wisdom.
שירים של הרב גולדברג ממש מעשירים את החיים שלנו בארץ.
אני מגיע לשיעורים בבית חב"ד ולמפגשים בשוש קפה. לאנשים מגיעים בשמחה לשמוע, להשתתף, להתבטא בזכות הפעילות העשירה של בית חב"ד ברחביה.
היה אירוע שבמיוחד שווה את ליבי הפרשת חלה, והיו דתיים וחילונים וכולם שמחו להגיע לאותו ערב מאוד מיוחד.
מה שממש משמח אותי בגן של חב"ד זה שהבנות חוזרות הביתה, שרות כל מיני פסוקים ושרות את התפילה, וזה ממש מביא כאילו שמחה הביתה, זה מביא את החגים, זה מביא את השבתות. איך את שלנו תפילה?
לפני 3 שבועות הכנסתי ספר תורה לבית חב"ד. הבחירה שלי הייתה כי אני מאוד אוהבת ומעריכה את התנועה של חב"ד. אני גם מבקרת מדי פעם בפעם בבית חב"ד, יש להם היום מקום חדש, מאוד יפה, קטן, אינטימי. עשו מפגש בין צעירים ברוח וצעירים בגיל, ופגשתי אז בחורה סבירה נחמדה. אני עד היום שומרת על קשר שנמשך למעלה מ5 שנים. והכרנו את זה אז בבית חב"ד.
והיא אומרת לי, תשמע, יש שני בחורים תלמידי גימנסיה רחביה. מתחילים לדבר, משוחחים, מדברים על דה ועל וכמו שתוך זמן קצר עברה שעה, שעה וחצי. הם באו אליי 2 ברציפות. בשבילי זה היה תענוג ממש.
כשאני מתחיל את היום מתפילה זה נותן לי יום אחר. התחלה של היום עם איזשהו אור. והמניין הזה מבחינתי זה האור שלי. כשאתה מגיע אתה מרגיש חום ואהבה והלחיצת יד בבוקר והחיוך הזה זה כבר נותן כבר כניסה אחרת. בסוף התפילה יש את דברי תורה של הרב, את הפרשת שבוע, את החיזוק היומי. זה עוד משהו שמוסיף לך גם ליידישקייט. אתה מרגיש נכנס היום עם איזשהו דבר רוחני, איזשהו דבר תורה.
Chabad Rebbe has always said we live in revolutionary times. It's remarkable to see how every Jew, man, woman, and child, young and old, feels welcome at Chabad of Rechavia over the past 10 years, day in, day out.
Please join us whenever you are here for shiurim in English and in Hebrew.
בית חב"ד זו משפחה, זו קהילה, וגם אני כתושב השכונה גאה ושמח להיות חלק מהקהילה הזאת. תמיד מוזמנים.
אין תעסוקה מהנה בעולם כמו להיות עסוק כל היום 25/8 לתת ליהודים את הכיף של היהדות, לתת להם הרגשה שהם חשובים, כי אתם באמת חשובים. תודה רבה. תודה. בבקשה, האורות. Please turn on the lights. יש עוד כיסאות למעלה. מי שצריך כיסא, יש עוד כיסאות למעלה. Rabbi Yossi Jacobson. Or, as you are fondly referred to across the globe, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. In one of your thousands of successful articles and lectures that you write there that you were one of the last fortunate people to receive $1 from the Rebbe one day. Yes, just one day before the Rebbe suffered his first stroke. On Sunday, the 26th of Adar, 1992. As you approached the Rebbe, Rabbi Groner informed the Rebbe that you were traveling to Eretz Yisrael that day. To which the Rebbe blessed you, first with the standard bracha, b'hatzlacha. And then, the Rebbe gave you an additional $1, adding, give this $1 for tzedakah in Eretz Yisrael. In addition to the incredible shlichut from the Rebbe that you accomplished across the globe, I believe that the last words that you heard from the Rebbe was that you have a special shlichus right here in Eretz Yisrael. One of America's premier Jewish scholars in Torah and Jewish mysticism, Rabbi Yossi Jacobson is one of the most sought-after speakers in the Jewish world today, lecturing to Jewish and lahavdil non-Jewish audiences on 6 continents and in 40 states. He also serves as teacher and mentor to thousands across the globe. He is considered to be one of the most passionate and mesmerizing communicators of Judaism today, culling his ideas from the entire spectrum of Jewish thought and making them relevant to contemporary audiences. Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson was the first rabbi ever to be invited by the Pentagon to deliver the religious keynote to the U.S. military chief of chaplains and to the National Security Agency. At the conference he was hailed, the Jewish really hate the Greyhound. Rabbi Jacobson grew up at the feet of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, absorbing his teachings and writings. In 1988, at the age of 15, he began serving on a small team of oral scribes and human tape recorders. They were charged with memorizing and transcribing 3 to 7 hours of talks by the YESHURUN, word by word, which were presented on the Shabbat and Jewish holidays. Friends, there's no better individual that we can think of to inspire and entertain us while we celebrate a decade of Chabad Of Rechavia in Yerushalayim than the one and only Rabbi Jacobson.
Wow, thank you so much, Rabbi Goldberg. Thank you, all of you who are here, so many dear friends, brothers and sisters. I am so thrilled to be able to be here with all of you on this evening here in the great YESHURUN Center and Shul. Thank you, Rabbi Gedalia. And thank you, and Rabbi and Rabbi Goldberg, for bringing us all here together, celebrating 10 remarkable years of Chabad in this great neighborhood of Rechavia, founded, I think, around 1924, right? Anybody who's been here since 1924? Besides you. You don't, 23. You gave birth. Thank you, and thank you for your very kind and illustrious words. I'll just make one correction, Rabbi Goldberg. Thank you. Those were not the last words, they were the second to the last words. Thank you. Thank you. So I was traveling to Israel that day. It was March 1992, the 26th day of Adar 1, Chavav Adar Aleph Tafshin Nun Beis, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory would distribute his dollars and blessings every Sunday morning and afternoon. The Rebbe at the time was 89 years old, and I grew up in that little neighborhood of Brooklyn, and since I was traveling to Israel that night on a flight 1 in the morning from JFK, this was Sunday midnight, Monday morning, I decided I wanted to go get a dollar and blessing from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So I got online approximately 6 o'clock p.m. Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. The Rebbe has stood on his feet, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 hours already. Tens of thousands of people came by, men, women, children, Jews of all walks of life, religious, secular, some non-Jews. And when I went, I asked the Rebbe's secretary, Rabbi Groner, to tell him that I'm going to Israel that night, Eretz Yisrael. And as Rabbi Goldberg said, the Rebbe gave me a special blessing, Rachav Hatzlacha, and then a second dollar, and he said in Yiddish, Abgeber Nafzdaka, in Eretz HaKodesh, you'll give this for charity, for tzedakah in the Holy Land, the second dollar they gave me. But right before that, I'm sorry, it was right before that, not right after that. Right before that, there was a father holding a little girl. And this girl must have been, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old.
It didn't look like she was from that neighborhood, the way she was dressed, and her father was holding her. She was very, very delicious. She had this angelic, cute look on her cheeks. And the Rebbe gave her father $1, and he gave her $1. And he said to her, bracha v'atzlacha, blessing and success. And this 5 or 6-year-old girl looked the Lubavitcher Rebbe straight in his eyes and said, and I quote, I was standing there, Lubavitcher Rebbe, I love you. And I have to say that the secretaries of the Rebbe did not expect this, nor were they very comfortable. Their faces displayed, I don't know, some apprehension or ambivalence, I would say. But the Rebbe's face began to glow. I've seen him smile many times. But his radiant smile that Sunday evening, that moment, I never saw such a smile. It filled the whole room. And the father and the girl began to move away, but the Rebbe called back this little girl and gave her a $2. And with this most exquisite joy and smile on his face, he said to her, this is for your love. And then it was my turn, and the smile was wiped away. For whatever reason. I'm still dealing with that. And I asked, why? That's when I was born. And he told me to give this $1 for stock in Eretz HaKodesh. And really, for me personally, this has been a very empowering and personal message and mission. We live in a time of so many blessings. We live in extraordinary times. We live in times that our great-grandparents couldn't even dream of. I know some of you, most of you live here. I don't have the privilege of living here, but every time I land in the Holy Land, and I think to myself, a few hours ago, I was in New York, and a few hours later, I landed in the homeland that Jews for thousands of years dreamt to come back to. And so many of their dreams were not fulfilled. It's surreal in so many ways. Living in times when close to 7 million Jews, that's more than 6 million Jews, are living in our eternal homeland, and when Jews around the world have experienced a renaissance and a sense of rejuvenation and freedom and prosperity and success it's unheard of in all of the years of exile, notwithstanding the great and difficult and scary challenges of anti-Semitism, of Jew hatred, and I don't only mean from your neighbors around here. Somebody once said Israel is a great country, it's just in a pretty lousy neighborhood. But I'm talking about even our neighbors, where professors and essayists and politicians who were embarrassed to spew Jew hatred are not ashamed anymore. And despite all of those challenges, we live in those extraordinary times, and yet it seems that internally, people suffer from a tremendous amount of stress and anxiety and lack of happiness. We have gifts that no generation of Jews had, but often internally there is a lack of contentment, a discontentment. People often don't feel the light, the love. When I heard those words from my teacher, from one of the great luminaries of the last generation, somebody in whose presence I had the privilege of growing up. I was privileged to sit at the feet of the Rebbe for close to 2 decades and hear his words almost every single Shabbos and Yom Tov for many, many hours. There was one prevailing message, which I'm going to share with you tonight, Be'ezer Hashem. And I guess it can all be summed up in that one line that he told his 5-year-old girl. This is for your love. You know, my dear friends, they say Professor Albert Einstein, who was considered the greatest scientist of the last generation, Time magazine declared him man of the century in Y2K. They had a choice between two people. Who was the most important, influential person of the 20th century? Time had a choice between two people, Adolf Hitler, YESHURUN, or Albert Einstein. I was fascinated. One was a Jew, and one was obsessed with Jews. They chose Einstein as the man of the century. He was once traveling on a train, and the conductor came in and asked all of the passengers to show their tickets. Professor Einstein looked in his bosom of his jacket, there was no ticket. He looked in the second bosom, there was no ticket. He checked his pants, there was no ticket. He checked his briefcase, there was no ticket. He looked at the floor, no ticket. He started to look under the seat. Maybe the ticket fell under the seat. And at this point, Professor Einstein, who was a little absent-minded, was crawling on all four, searching for his ticket. The conductor at last is embarrassed. He says, Professor Einstein, we all know who you are. And I trust you that you did not come on this train without purchasing a ticket. It's fine. You can sit down and we'll move on. And Einstein gets up and sits down. He thanks the conductor, and the conductor goes to the next passenger to examine his ticket. And as the conductor is moving on, he sees Einstein gets back on the floor, crawling on the floor, literally searching everywhere for this ticket. He says, Professor Einstein, I promise you, I know who you are. Everybody knows who you are. You are Albert Einstein. We trust that you have bought a ticket. You don't have to look for it. And Professor Einstein looks at him and he says, I know that you know who I am, and I also know who I am, but I don't know where I'm going. And I think of this anecdote. It reminds me of the Israeli one, you know, that timeless Israeli one, where Moshe Dayan, some of you remember Moshe Dayan, he was your defense minister at some point, and he had a patch on his eye from a wound in the 1940s. He was driving on an Israeli highway. I don't have to tell you what driving on an Israeli highway is like. Those of you who made Aliyah from America know that that's not one of the perks of coming to Israel, and that is dealing with the drivers on the roads. So Dayan was driving 155 kilometers per hour, which of course is not too fast. In Israel, it's pretty slow, and a policeman stops him and says, General Dayan, you ought to serve as a role model to Israeli society. You're driving like a madman. I have to quadruple your summons. Mimenu yiru. Lo yishmu v'yiro. You ought to serve as a paragon. Moshe Dayan looks at the police officer and says, listen, Adoni HaShoter, my dear officer, I only have one eye. Now what would you like me to do with that eye? Look at the speedometer or look at the highway? I don't know if he got a ticket or not. I'm not sure. But the message is an important one. I can look at the speedometer. Some people look at the speedometer their entire life. How slow am I going? How fast am I going? And fail to see the highway. There was another Israeli who told me he was driving his mamash like a YESHURUN, and the policeman stops him and he says, you know, I have been waiting here for you all day. I've been giving one ticket today. I have been waiting for you all day. He just looks at him and says, I know that, and I came as fast as I can. and he appreciated it so much, he let him off the hook. It's called a Yiddish cup. When you make an aliyah, you don't have these Yiddish cup back in the United States of America. The Yiddish Israeli cup, the combination of the intensity together with the IQ, a blessed combination for creativity and anxiety. Which is why I know of another friend who was driving the other day. This is in my neck, so the neck of the woods, the FDR. You remember the FDR? For many of you, it's all over Shalom, but it still exists. And he's driving 2 o'clock in the morning, 120 miles per hour. A policeman stops him. He says, why are you driving so fast at 1 in the morning? Where are you going to? He says, I'm going to a lecture. policeman says, 1 o'clock in the morning, who's going to give you a lecture? He says, my wife. So, I know who I am, Einstein says. I just got it. I know who I am, but I need to know where I'm going. So the Rambam, our great teacher, the Rambam, Nachmanides Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman, the great 12th century and 13th century Spanish sage, who then comes up to Yerushalayim, to Eretz Yisrael, where he passes away, asks the famous question in the beginning of Lech Lecha and says, usually every hero in the Tanakh is introduced with a resume, with a curriculum vitae. Why him? V'noyach motzachein be'enei Hashem. Eile todas noyach ish tzadik. A CV. I have to know a little bit about the man or the woman who is being introduced, so I can have the context to understand why they were given the mission or the challenge that they were given. This is true with every personality besides one, the first Jew, Avraham Avinu. Vayomer Hashem el Avram, lech lecha me'artzecha me'latzecha me'beis avicha el ha'oretz asher arech. God told Avram, leave Haran, leave your land, your birthplace, your father's home, go to the land I will show you. That's what I did yesterday. The I'll turn you into a great nation. And hence the story of the Jewish people commences. Why? Why? Give me an introduction. Give me one verse. Avraham was a good man. He was noble. He was moral. He sought the truth. He was a searcher. He was a theologian who discovered monotheism. Tell me about his sacrifices. The Midrash tells a bunch of stories about Avraham's youth. In the Torah, the Hebrew Bible, and the Tanakh, not a single sentence. Not a single word. I know he had a father, Terah, two brothers, Nachor and Ara, and out of the blue, God told Abraham, leave. Why him? No mention. No introduction. This is a great question of the Rambam. Brilliant question of the Rambam. A very difficult one. When you're reading the text, you wonder, tell me, give me context. I need to understand, what did you see in this person? Various answers have been given. The Rambam gives his answer. Maharal of Prague gives a very famous answer in his book, in his Magnum Opus, Netzach Yisrael. Other answers. Tonight, I want to share with you a 2-line answer, maybe a 3-line answer, that was presented by the second Rebbe of Ger, the Sfas Emes. Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh, altar of Ger, who passed away, Tafresh Samachin, 1905, in his work Sfas Emes on Lech Lecha. He has a 2- or 3-line answer to this question of the Rambam. And that's the answer I want to share with you, my dearest friends, this evening. But you know the Sfas Emes is very cryptic. 2 lines and you have to figure it out. In order to give you an understanding of the Sfas Emes, I'm going to change the subject. It also helps for all the ADDs and ADHDs who come to hear me. ADHD acronym, attention deficit, pay donuts. So I don't stick to a subject for too long, don't worry. You can come back, I know you're ready, I went for too long. We're finished, you can come back to me, wake up. We're off to the next subject, we'll get back to the Sfas Emes as my ADD doesn't kick in too heavily. We all have the schus, the privilege of living in Eretz Yisrael. We're celebrating here one of the great kehillas of Chabad, built in Eretz Yisrael, specifically here in Rechavia, in Yerushalayim, the capital of Eretz Yisrael. This week we're introduced to the first Jew, Avraham Avinu, who would be the father of Am Yisrael. And the name always gives away the secret. Why is our land called Eretz Yisrael? Why are we called Bnei Yisrael, the children of Yisrael? Why is our nation called Am Yisrael? Why is our Torah called Toras Yisrael? Why Yisrael? Why not Eretz Avraham, Eretz Yitzchak, Eretz Yaakov, Bnei Yaakov? I personally like Bnei Yaakov better. I chose it. Jacobson. But nobody else agrees. I had no choice because we come from Georgia, my family, and my name is not Jacobson. My name is Jacobashvili. Jacobashvili is the real name. But my grandfather got out of Stalinist Russia through forging his passports and identity, so the name changed. But we're not called Bnei Yaakov, even though we're all Jacobsons. We're all sons of Jacob, sons of Abraham, sons of Isaac. We're called Bnei Yisrael. We're in Eretz Yisrael. Why? So everybody knows the story. We're going to learn it in a few weeks. That mysterious moment when Yaakov's name is changed. Midlife, the middle of the night, he's traveling home from Mesopotamia back to the Holy Land. He's about to encounter his brother. He's terrified from his brother. He sends a bride. He prepares for war. He prays to Hashem. Dorim, Tefillah, Milchama. And on the night before he meets his brother, in the middle of the night, Vayivaser Yaakov Levadoi, Vayavik Ishimai Adaloi Sashachar. Yaakov remains alone, and a man wrestles with him till dawn break. As a result of that wrestling, Yaakov is maimed, he's limping, but that man does something else. When Yaakov asks him for a blessing, he says, "What is your name?" And when he introduces himself as Yaakov, he says, "No, wrong name. Yisrael, Israel must become your new name. Kisarisa im Elokim im Anashim v'atuchel." You wrestle with God and people, and you have prevailed. What is the mystery of that story that gave us our name? For eternity, each and every one of us is a member of Am Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, not Yaakov, even though Yaakov is his original name. So many different interpretations have been given over the ages, but tonight I present to you one by the grandson of Rashi, known as the Rashbam. Rashbam, which is an acronym for Rabbeinu Shmuel ben Meir, was a son of Rashi's daughter Yocheved, married a man named Reb Meir, and they had at least 3 children. One child, Yitzchak, was known as the Rivon, Reb Yitzchak ben Meir. A second child, Yaakov, known as Rabbeinu Tam. And the third child, Shmuel, who came to be known as the Rashbam, Rabbeinu Shmuel ben Meir. The Rashbam lived in France, in the country of his grandfather Rashi, was born approximately 1085 and passed away approximately 1160, a few decades after his great illustrious grandfather by whom he learned. Rashbam writes in Parshas Vayeshev, in his commentary beginning of Vayeshev, that I argued with my grandfather when we learned together. V'hoidoli, he acquiesced to me, he even told me that he would rewrite many things differently because there are new ideas that come into his mind every single day. Every single day you could rewrite a Rashi. The Rashbam maintains that he follows the depth of the literal interpretation and is sometimes critical of his grandfather Rashi, who in his opinion sometimes embraces more the Midrashic side. And there's one interpretation I share with you from the Rashbam. It's not well known. It's extremely original and creative, and according to him, it's the simple reading of the text. What this battle of Yaakov was about. And the Rashbam compares it to two similar battles, basically showing the common denominator between the three and then allowing one to give us meaning for the other two. And he says, let's look at the story of Moshe. Moshe is coming back to Egypt from Midian at the beginning of Shemais, so what happens? He stays in a hotel. And what happens there? On the derech, on the road back to Egypt with his wife and 2 children. God meets him. God meets him and wants to kill him. And his wife does a fast risk and saves the situation. He says, wow, Yaakov is on the way, and somebody meets him and tries to kill him. Yaakov is later going to say, Ki ra'isi Elokim panim el panim. He is convinced that he saw the face of God, and almost killed him. Moshe again. And then the Rashbam says into the third story. The third story is Yonah. The great prophet Yonah, who's given a mission to go to Nineveh and cause the country, the city, to morally transform themselves, and he runs away. He runs away to Tarshish. We know the end of the story. The tsunami, the turbulence in the sea causes them to overthrow him, to cast him into the sea, swallowed by the whale. And he realizes he can't run, and he ultimately embraces the mission to go to Nineveh and to rebuke them and to transform the fabric of that society, the moral fabric of that society. And the Rashbam says all these 3 stories have the same theme. 3 people trying to run away from their mission because of a fear that enters their heart from this mission. Yonah, the story says, ran away. Moshe, he says, also tried to run away. We know at the burning bush, he argued with God for 7 days. I don't want to go. Shlach lo b'yatish. Send somebody else. Reluctantly he agrees, but the Rashbam says, at this point Moshe said, you know what? I'm just going to stay in the hotel for a couple of years. Must have been a Ritz-Carlton on the way from Midian to Egypt. I'll stay in the hotel. And at that moment he says, God comes to stop Moshe from running away. He says, Yaakov didn't want to face this. At the last moment, he said, I don't need it. I'm out. I don't want to confront him. Vayivose Yaakov levadoi. He was about to run away in a different direction. And this angel, stopped him from running away. Can't run away. Stay. And at that moment, he gets to stand strong. And I asked him a question. Why did these 3 people want to run away? Yonah wanted to run. Moshe wanted to flee. And Jacob wanted to escape. Why? Pachad, fear. But these were not cowards. Moses was no coward. Jacob was no coward. What were they afraid of? What were they running away from? Why did God have to come himself or send an angel to stop them? And of course the answer is, this was not just a fear. Something may happen to me, somebody may harm me. This was a much deeper fear. There was a fear of feeling that they are unworthy of such a titanic, awesome, and great mission. Moshe Rabbeinu said it right away. When God says, I'm sending you to liberate the people, he said, Mi Yomoichi. Who am I? Moshe says, I'm not a man of words. Nobody will believe me. I am not the right person to fill these shoes and become the liberator, the redeemer, the great mentor, leader, and teacher of the Jewish people. Yonah is very ambivalent about being sent on a mission to Ashur, to the Assyrians, to the Ninevites, to the arch enemies of the Jewish people, to have them repent. He doesn't want this mission. This is not a mission he's excited about. To go and cause their repentance of these people who don't like the Jewish people. What about Yaakov? What about Jacob? God told him to go back home. God told him, I'll be with you. But at this moment, facing his brother, who tried to kill him 2 decades ago, is excruciatingly painful. It's not just the physical fear I may be harmed. It's the emotional fear. And it's the spiritual fear. I am the person who is going to be given this land. I am the person who was blessed by my father to continue the covenant of Judaism, of monotheism, of Avraham and Yitzchak, not Esau. It's a great moment. It's a very truthful moment. It's a very deep moment. And Yaakov does not want to face Esau at this moment. He'd rather go away. Ignore the situation. Let Esau not encounter it. And each one of them, great people, is stopped at the last moment by God himself, who says, this is your mission. Don't run from it. And it would happen over and over again with the greatest of prophets, Yeshaya, Isaiah, who says, Bani aros Messiah, my lips are stuffed. Yeshaya, he says, I'm sitting with a nation that is contaminated in their lips. I can't do this. Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, who says, I'm a lamb, I'm a child. Haras olam rachma, I wish I would have remained eternally pregnant in my mother's womb and be a stillborn child. Jeremiah says. What are they all afraid of? The gigantic mission that is conferred upon them. Something that is very deep, very intense, and extremely powerful. And that's the moment Yaakov's name is changed from Yaakov to Yisrael. And when I read his words, I feel, isn't this so personal and so relevant for many of us? Because so often in life, each of us is also faced with our mission. And not just so often, really every single day of our life, but the fear that enters into our hearts is often so powerful. What is that fear? What is it? Many people, many therapists, many teachers feel that our deepest fear is that we're not adequate. Self-confidence, security, knowing who you are, believing in yourself. We fear that we're not worthy, we're not deserving. That may be part of it. But I think there's a much deeper fear. The deeper fear that many of us have is not that we're inadequate. It's rather We fear our power much more than our inadequacy. It's not our darkness that terrifies us. It's our light that terrifies us. It's not that I feel deep down I'm inadequate. It's I fear to be too powerful. That's what I'm afraid of. Deep down, many of us ask this question. Who am I? Who am I to be successful? Who am I to be happy? Who am I to be powerful? Who am I to be influential? Who am I to be gorgeous, physically, spiritually? Who am I to be wholesome? Who am I to live life to the fullest? Who am I to rock the boat and change the world? Who am I to become a beacon of light, hope, love, and leadership? It's that deep power in us that we fear so much. I can't be any of this. I must be small. I must remain insignificant. I must remain quiet. I must surrender to quiet desperation and live a life of mediocrity. Who am I to have an awesome marriage? Who am I to have an extraordinary relationship with my children and grandchildren? Who am I to be wealthy financially, emotionally, spiritually? Who am I to be a spiritual ambassador, a spiritual powerhouse of light? Who am I? Who am I to wake up in the morning and say, this is going to be an awesome, unbelievable, amazing, extraordinary, powerful day? Who do I think I am? I'm supposed to be a schmacker. I'm supposed to be a loser. All I'm supposed to do is give an old Jewish sigh and tell you what's bothering me. And Baruch Hashem, if you're a member of the Jewish people, there is always something that's missing. They say in a kosher restaurant, the waiter goes from table to table and asks, is anything all right? But you know, this type of fear, the greatest people had. Yaakov, Moshe, Yoina, Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, and many others. The greatest people had. The mission is too big. It's too powerful. I certainly don't deserve it. I'm not that person. Get me out of here. Don't notice me. And at that moment of truth, God comes to each and every one of us and says, you're a member of Yisrael. You're a child of Yisrael. Don't run away. Send them my love. Don't run away from your potential, from your greatness, from your mission. Not because your fears are not true. Your fears may be true. But you know what? They're irrelevant. Not everything that's true is relevant. I'm afraid. In Yiddish they say, is was. Life doesn't mean I'm not afraid. Life means I'm afraid, and I do it anyway. A great life is not a life that lacks fears. A great life is full of fears, and then I do it anyway because the fear may be real, but it's irrelevant to my life. When I allow these types of questions and fears to take me over, all it does is it stifles my light, dampens my creativity, and does not allow me to be the soul God destined me to be and the mission that He sent me on this world for. You ask the question, who am I? from him. He tried to kill me. It's too scary. I'm the one who was chosen to continue the covenant. I really cannot confront Esau. Who am I? But the deep message of Judaism to every single one of us is, who are you? You're a prince of God. You're a daughter of God. You're a son of God. Who are you? You are an ambassador of infinity. As the Tanya says, every soul is a chelek elikam imal mamish. You're a fragment of heaven on earth. Who are you? You are an ambassador of the divine, an ambassador of love, of light, of hope, of healing, of redemption. An ambassador of truth, of authenticity, of integrity. An ambassador of Torah, an ambassador of Yiddishkeit, an ambassador of Abbas Hashem, Abbas HaTorah, Abbas Yisrael. What do you mean, who are you? Do I have trauma? Do you have trauma? Yes. Do I have fear? Yes. Do I have issues? Yes. I don't know about you, I know about me. Do I have struggles? Yes. Do I have dilemmas? Yes. Do I think sometimes this mission is completely not for me? Absolutely. But I am bigger than my trauma. You are bigger than your fears. Your soul is a piece of infinity. God is telling them you have to realize who you are. Your fears are real, but they're irrelevant because you are bigger than them. You are not your fear. You are not your trauma. You are not your pain. You are not your challenges. You are not your paralysis. You are not your anxiety. You are not your stress. I know the anxiety does not believe a word I say. And when your anxiety sets in, the anxiety's message is, I am you forever, and you are me forever. You are my soulmate. We shall become one. I wish you could have the same romance with your spouse, but you're not there inside. I mean, come on, you know how to tell your husband or wife, I need a little private time, right? Why can't you do that with your anxiety? Just tell your anxiety, I need a little private time, because your anxiety says, no, I'm not only married to you, I am you. You are a shtick anxiety. This is your mission, this is your raison d'etre, this is your destiny. Thank you. That helps for anxiety. The Holy Barditchever, Melitzicha Barditchev, the Kedushas Levi, gives that extraordinary interpretation for that enigmatic statement of our sages in Medrash Rabbah and Rashi. Af Noach Miktane Amona Hoya. Noach too had little faith. Maimin, Ve'enoi Maimin, he believed, but he didn't believe. Noach spoke to God directly, he didn't even need faith. Built an ark for 120 years. Af Noach Maimin, Ve'enoi Maimin, he believed and didn't believe. So the Barditchever says Noach did not have issues with faith in God. Of course, Noach believed in God. He was one moral man in a corrupt society. In a world gone mad morally, he was a righteous person. Yishtadik coming. Noach had no issue with faith in God. Noach miktane amona. Noach had little belief in himself. Noach believed in God, but he did not believe that God believes in him. It's true for so many. Equally important to your belief in God is your belief that God believes in you. Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin writes in Sitkas Hatzadik Kufnun Vav Kufnun Dalet, for those who will do homework tonight. Kishem sha'adam tzorich lahamin b'Hashem yizborech tzorich achakach lahamin gam kein ba'atzmo. You have to believe in God, you have to believe God believes in you. Because if I don't believe in God, but I don't believe in me, it means I don't believe in God. I believe that I am a mistake. And the truth is, you know, I turned on the radio the other day. Some of you, when you go in the car, you listen to this guy YY. But I don't. I refuse to. And I was in the car the other day and somebody put me on, and I said, please, not him again. She says, what do you have against him? I said, I don't against her. I just spent too much time with him. I need a little break. It's enough being him. I don't have to listen to him. It's fine. So instead we put on the great spiritual mystic of America, Michael Savage. And from California. You forgot your roots. Okay, it's time for a visit. So Michael Savage is talking. I kid you not. I put on the radio Michael Savage, and he says, somebody sent me this line. This is on 770 a.m. Not 770 Eastern Parkway. 770 a.m. ABC talk show radio in New York. And Michael Savage is broadcasting from California. He's an Alta Yid. Usually talks about what he ate last night for dinner, which is not Rabbi Landau's or Badatz's favorite foods, let's put it that way. So Michael Savage says, you know, somebody sent me a line or a page or an article said by a man, and he says his name was Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I read it, and Michael Savage said, I'm reading this line, and I say to myself, only a man of God can say these words. So I put on the radio, I didn't want to hear Shiurim, I put on the radio, so only a man of God can say these words. And this is what I call a wise person. Not a smart person, a wise person. So I want to hear what's this line of Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson that Savage says, only a man of God can say these words. And Michael Savage says to his, 5-10 million listeners, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said that the day you were born is the day that God declared that the world is incomplete without you. The day you were born is the day that God declared not only you matter, but you're indispensable. This world is a broken place without you. He believed in God, but he didn't believe in his or her infinite potential to be an ambassador of God to change the world. That's why he didn't pray for the people. That's why he didn't influence the people. He felt that he was inadequate. He was humble. He was righteous. But he was afraid to acknowledge and embrace that a human being is indispensable to the cosmic symphony, and the day you were born is the day God declared this world is incomplete without you. And you want to know something? There was a mashpia, a spiritual mentor, a teacher of Hasidic teachings. He lived in Kfar Chabad. He died in 1971. His name was Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman. And he used to conduct big fabrengens in Kfar Chabad, gatherings where people would come from all over the country, especially yeshiva boys. And he would inspire them, according to the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and the students, about the infinite greatness and potential of every Jew. And when somebody came to visit once, a very prominent person, he sat there and he said, Reb Shlomo Chaim, your approach is wrong. You should talk much more about Gehenna. You should talk much more about hell, about purgatory. You're saying too many nice things. You're too positive. People will take advantage from you. You sit down and you tell people, if you don't repent, you think Dante's furnace is bad? You know what God's barbecue looks like? There's mustard and sauerkraut, and he sautés you with barbecue sauces. And it makes a kodesh, mit a kenos edillo, mit a pesach, mit a matzah, mit a murder. Scare the living daylights out of them. Tell them what's going to happen. That's how they'll do tshuva. Don't tell them about their infinite greatness. So the Chaim looked at him and said, I consider it. I consider it. But then I look back at history, and I say to myself, take a look at Noah. Noah built an ark for 120 years. Why? What does Rashi say? Remember? He stood in the center of town. He stood in the center of town and he built this huge Titanic, pun intended. Titanic was also unsinkable, but it wasn't made by God, or by God's instruction. He built this huge, monstrous Taber. 120 years. Why? So our sages say, everyone walked by. Says, Noach, what are you up to? And what did Noach say? There's going to be a Mabul. There's going to be a flood, and you're all going to drown. 120 years he told people there's going to be a flood and you're going to drown. How many Bali Tshuva did he make? How many Bali Tshuva did Noach make? Anybody knows? Zero. He should have been the most successful Bali Tshuva maker. Scared the living daylights out of them. Tell them about the flood. Canaan Bali Tshuva, he ended up in the ark with himself, his wife, and the immediate family. Next generation comes Avraham Avinu. What does Avraham Avinu do? Vayita Eishel b'Rechavia, vayikra sham b'Shem Hashem Keloila. Avraham Avinu builds a Chabad house. The first thing, a restaurant. Eishel, Rashi says, Rav Shmuel, either it was a hotel or it was an orchard. Common denominators, there was food. Avraham gave food, he gave drinks. They said l'chaim, they fabreg, and he fabreg with them about the Rebbeinu Shalom. And what happened? He changed the world. He changed the world. Not because Gehenna doesn't exist. Chas v'sholom. Not because the Mabul that it never happened. Chas v'sholom. It's because you have to have the context of what Judaism is. Judaism is not about a God who wants everybody to burn in hell. Judaism is not about a God who wants to take revenge of every sinner. Judaism is not about guilt. Guilt and Judaism have nothing to do with each other. Guilt is not a Jewish concept. Somebody asked me, what's a Jew? And I said, if he doesn't feel guilty, he blames himself. People think guilt is a Jewish concept. Guilt is the antithesis of Judaism. Do you know that? And I don't feel guilty for saying that, by the way. I know somebody will tell me afterwards I should. I will get an email. You should feel guilty. Guilt has nothing to do with Judaism. I want to know one good thing that comes out from your guilt. Besides you being an anxious, depressed, melancholy schmucker. Tell me what good comes out of your guilt. Remorse? Awesome. You want to change something? Pajamasta. That's my Hebrew. You're going to change things tomorrow? Great. You need to apologize? We're all for it. But guilt? What does guilt do? Guilt is the Yetzer Hara, destructive force that comes into our brains to shut us down. Look at the results. And Tanya says there's atzvus and there's merirus. Atzvus is sadness, guilt, depression. Nothing to do with Judaism. Merirus is I am moved, I'm frustrated by a mistake, and I'm determined to fix it. That's Judaism. That's Judaism. And that's why when we do the confessions on Yom Kippur, it's always with a melody, which always rubbed me the wrong way. Imagine you come home tonight and you say, honey, I got to make a confession. And your wife melts, and you go, I betrayed you. I lied to you. Oh yeah. Destroyed you. Get out of here, Miss Sugar. Now, what is a Broadway musical? Was een schöne Phase? What's a joke? It's not how you confess. So you know, this thing, somebody showed me an insight. You know who? I'll tell you, the first person told me the insight. And then he says, Rabbi, who said this? And I said, send him my love. Send him my love.
Just close it. Just push the button.
I can talk to him if you want. I can send him my love directly. I don't mind. Shout to So he asks me, he says, who said this part? I said, I don't know, but it's a Chassidish art. You can hear, I said, it's a Chassidic insight. So he says, mistake, fail, X, the Tiferes Yisrael. Tiferes Yisrael was a Yekish Rav. He was one of the great German rabbis, Rabbi Yisrael Lipschitz. He wrote the commentary Yochanan of Boyaz HaMishnayos, Tiferes Yisrael. And he writes in Tractate Yuma, you can look it up, why do Jews sing the confession on Yom Kippur? You know what he says? And that's mamish, you know, you wouldn't expect to hear this from a German rabbi. This is more a Chassidish word from the Baal Shem Tov school of thought. But this is from the Tiferes Yisrael, very different school of thought. But this is what he says, I kid you not. So the Gemara says in Tractate Yuma, page 86, that when a Jew does tshuva out of love, his or her sins are transformed into mitzvahs. It says when Jews get up Yom Kippur and they say Hashamnu, they're doing it out of love. So all the sins are mitzvahs. So of course you have to sing when you talk about your mitzvahs. That's a Jewish way of thinking. That's not a Christian way of thinking, that's a Jewish way of thinking. This thing that people turn Judaism into this guilt trip of self-loathing of yourself and of your children and of your students and of other people, it's completely ineffective. And it just creates stress. And for no reason. And that's the difference between Noach and Avram. And the argument still exists, especially in this holy city and in this holy land. There are 6.5 million Jews living in this land. And there are those who, like Noach, believe that all we should be telling them is there's going to be a flood and you're going to be destroyed. What happens? People look at Noach and they say, bye-bye, Noach. Avram Avinu comes, goes over to a Jew, expresses love, camaraderie, appreciation, a lack of judgmentalism, and opens him or her up to the infinity and depth and love of Torah and of Yiddishkeit and of God and of the Jewish people and of the land of Israel, and Avram changes the world. Rabbeinu HaMenachem HaMeiri writes that Avram Avinu converted more than half of humanity to monotheism in his day. Half. How? Through one never-ending fabrengen. That's what Avram Avinu did. He went from city to city. In Yiddish they say, et verbracht. The Rambam says in Hilchos Avodah Zarah chapter 1, he spoke and he taught and he explained and he fed and he nurtured and he embraced and he mentored, and the meal was, the food was delicious. Sarah's credit, of course. Then I understood. I never understood. From a little child, you come into shul, they're waiting for a minyan. So what do? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hamoitzi lechem min haaretz. Shia asked Hamachav, why can't you just count people normally? 1, 2, 3, 4. You're not allowed to count Jews. Till today, you're not allowed to count Jews. You ever seen a shul they'll go, not 1, not 2, not 3. If you never saw it, it's a little strange that you're finding verses with 10 words to be able to figure out if you have a minyan. Just count them for heaven's sake. But God told Moshe, don't count them. It can only be damaging. And King David made the famous mistake. How do you count Jews? Zayidnu. Everybody got to give. Why? What's the big deal of counting Jews? Why can't I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? It's not how we count. How do you count? You count how many chairs in every row, then how many rows, then how many people were missing, and then you figure out how much you made that year. But you can't go what to why. The answer, my dear friend, is very simple and very profound. Why do countries take account? Why do we make a census? A census is traditionally always made to demonstrate power, strength, success. That's its purpose. The purpose of a count is to show and demonstrate our powers in numbers. A company has 3,000 employees, it's impressive. An army has 1.5 million troops, it's impressive. A country numbers 300 million citizens. That means there's a lot of manpower there. There's a lot of resources, there's a lot of energy there. Numbers equals power. And the master of the world, the Rebbeinu Shalom, knew that if Jews start counting themselves, what will happen? It will be the fastest road to depression and self-doubt. Because how many Jews are there in the world? Already Moses said, Ki atem hama'at mikol ha'amim, you're the smallest. Until today, this prophecy is true as I'm speaking. You have 2.7 billion Christians, 1.8 billion Muslims, 1.2 billion Chinese, as I'm speaking, another million or more. And we have 14 million Jews. We don't constitute even 1/4 of 1% of humanity. Listen to those words, not even 1/4 of 1% of humanity. The numbers of Jews is smaller than a statistical error on a Chinese census. Think about that. So when a Jew looks in the mirror, he or she could say, there's no hope for this people. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, never count Jews. Zeh yitnu. You have to look at what they give. You have to look at their contribution to the world. Don't count them. Count what they give. Zeh yitnu. Look at what they contributed to humanity from the day they staged foot on the history, on the planet, on this planet. Zeh yitnu. Look at what they gave. There are 7 billion people in the world. I don't know if you know, but around 3 billion people living today owe their lives to a Jew. One Jew. He lived in Germany. He came from Hasidic lineage. Then he became very secular, like most German Jews, to the other extreme. He won the Nobel Prize in 1918. His name was Fritz Haber. In 1909, Germany was hungry. He was a Jewish chemist. And he, as he put it, invented bread from the air. The country didn't have enough food because there was not enough fertilizer to grow the produce, to grow the crop. And as a chemist, he utilized the nitrogen in the air. 80% of the air is nitrogen, and he managed to extract from it and create artificial synthetic fertilizer, which allowed the earth to produce far more grain and produce and vegetables for people to live. It is estimated today, my dearest friends, that 3 billion people owe their lives to this Jewish chemist in Germany named Fritz Haber, who invented this bread from the air. 3 billion people is more than 1/3 of civilization today. Does not starve because of that invention in the early 20th century of this Jew Fritz Haber. I wish I could end this story right here, but I would be betraying history to end this story. The story has another side, far darker and far more gloomy. Fritz Haber, like many Jews, had to show that he was a patriot. And therefore, in the midst of the First World War, during his research of discovering how to make artificial fertilizer, he also came across the ingredients to create what we would call today chemical warfare. And in 1915, he gave the German army the first opportunity to be able to send gas to their enemy in Ypres in Belgium, April 1915, where they gassed the foe. This was the first time in history that chemical warfare was employed during the war. It shocked the enemy, it took them by surprise. They did not expect it, they didn't know where it was coming from. Fritz Haber himself went to the front lines to observe this new phenomenon that he discovered. He came home that night. His wife, Clara, was a Jewish lady. She was the first woman to receive a PhD. In Germany, she translated many of his works to English. She was a brilliant woman herself. And when she came home, she called him a murderer and a liar. She said, you took your great talent and your great blessing and you used it to gas the enemy. This is a betrayal of science. This is a betrayal of your work. They got into a huge fight. And the argument continued. Fritz Haber, as usual, took a sleeping pill or a few, and their son, Herman, who was around bar mitzvah age, 12 or 13, heard this large, terrifying sound. He jumped out of bed, he ran out to the garden, and he saw that his mother shot herself with her husband's revolver. He caught his mother in his arms, where she died, right there in the middle of the night, in their garden, in front of their young boy. Some people are strange and have their priorities somewhat mixed up. The next day, he was back at the front. The war ended. He decided if he could make bread out of air, he could make gold out of wood. He could make gold out of it, he could find gold, help Germany recover, but that didn't help. He went on to work in the Berlin Scientific Institute under the Kaiser, and after the war, he developed a pesticide for insects, for killing insects. And then in 1934, he walks into his office one day, and there's a sign on the door, the Jew Haber is not welcome here anymore. At that point, Hitler became the Führer of Germany, and Jews who were in leading positions in science, music, university positions were all dethroned and fired, and Haber's office was taken over by the Gestapo. Chaim Weizmann, who was then one of the leaders of the Zionist movement, offered him to come to Palestine, but of course to come to Israel, to lead what today is known as the Weizmann Institute, because a future in Germany he didn't have. He agreed. He left Germany, he stayed in a hotel in Basel, in Switzerland, on the way to the Holy Land. He died there at the age of 65, 1934, at night in the hotel. He was cremated. The Gestapo took over his office. They found all of his ingredients, all of his discoveries, all of his work, including the gas that he developed through years and years of research. He changed the name. The name became Zyklon B. It was the last day that 6 million Jews, including Fritz Haber's children, relatives, friends, breathed in during those hellish Holocaust years. His son Herman managed to escape to America, but at the end of the Holocaust, the trauma of watching his mother's death that night in 1915 and hearing what happened with his father's gas was too much, and he took his own life as well. When I came across the story the first time, I thought to myself, wow, here is one Jew that most people never heard of before tonight, Fritz Hader. 3 billion people owe their lives to him today. 3 billion people. And the same Jew, of course unwillingly and inadvertently, is the one who provided Nazi Germany with that gas that murdered 1/3 of our people in Eastern Europe. And it made me realize, what does Shakespeare say? Some people are born great, some people grow into greatness, and some people greatness is thrust upon them. It's the story of the Jewish people. We don't know how to play Little League. We're trying for many years. We only know how to play Big League. Here was one Jew. God said, don't count Jews, they're 40 million. Zayidnu! Look at their contribution in the positive or the other way. Zayidnu! Look at what they can give. Look at this, what one person achieved or accomplished. Change the world. Literally. So all my fears and my traumas, they may be true, but they're irrelevant. And that moment when Yaakov's name was changed to Yisrael, the Rashbam is teaching us, the angel said, don't run away from your destiny. Don't run away from your mission. Never doubt the infinite potential that there is, that infinite greatness. Never tell yourself, who am I? Who are you? You are destined to live a full, beautiful life. God wants you to be successful, happy, wholesome, inspired, an ambassador of love and light. You do not help anybody else by shrinking your light. You don't help other people feel more secure by you becoming insecure. It's the other way around. The more you shine your light, the more you inspire us to shine our light. The more I shine my light, the more you light will shine. Never stop and hesitate from shining your light in the most powerful and deep way possible. Come back to the Svaselas, remember? You thought I forgot over there. Miktana Yamoni, you didn't know. The Svaselas says, I'm going to tell you my answer to the Rambam. Why did God choose Avraham? He said, Lech lecha, go. Svaselas gives a very original interpretation. And this is what he says. He says, God doesn't tell it to the Avraham. God tells it to every single person. Hashem tells it to every single person. Every single human being is given that instruction. Why he chose Avraham? He didn't choose Avraham, he tells it to every single person. So what happened? So Svaselas says, Avraham Avinu was the only one who heard it. He heard it. He listened to it. He took it to heart. And he changed his life based on it. And he changed history based on it. So you say, what was unique about Avraham Avinu before? There's no story. That's exactly the point. God tells it to everybody. What made Avraham was, he heard it. He believed in it. God tells every single person every day, Lech lecha. Go away, go away, go out. Go out of your stories, go out of your traumas, go out of your fears, those that are created by your country, by your birthplace, by the home of your parents. We all tell ourselves stories about who we are and who we are not. We all have voices that function in our brain constantly. Watch those voices, but God says, no, lech lecha. I want you to go to you. Who are you? You're a piece of infinity. You're a powerhouse. You're God's child. You're an ambassador of Hashem in this world. You are bigger than all your pain. You're bigger than all your trauma. You say, no. You know who I am? Do you know the abuse I endured? Do you know what happened to me when I was 6? Do you know what happened to me when I was 11? Do you know what happened to me when I was 16? Do you know what my therapist says about me? You know what my wife says about me? You know what my mother-in-law says about me? And most importantly, you know what I say about me? They say there was this fellow who had a lot of issues with confidence and self-esteem and identity. And he went to this big therapist. His name was Plotkin, Dr. Plotkin. And Plotkin says, you know, I'm different than everybody else. They'll keep you here for 3 years. I keep you here once for 5 hours. I charge you $8,000, but then you're done. Good, sounding good. He's there a whole day, pays you the $8,000. What's my diagnosis? Says your diagnosis is you really have no self-confidence. He says, really? That's why I paid $8,000? I want to know the reason I don't have self-confidence. The doctor says, well, it's not unlikely for a loser. That voice that people have and that God is challenging, lech lecha. I want you to go to the lecha that is pre all these stories, pre all these narratives, pre all these convictions of who you could be and who you can't be, of how limited you are, of how difficult your life must be, of how certain things are impossible, how you're incompetent. There may be challenges, there may be struggles, there may be issues you have to confront, but the choice is, are you bigger than them or are they bigger than you? Do they define you or do you define them? Do I put my trauma in context of my infinity or does my trauma put me in context of itself? Do I put my trauma in the context of my infinity or does the trauma put me in its context that I become its living, breathing slave? So the first commandment of the first Jew is lech. You need to go away. To where? Lecha. To that infinite core. And for this you have to step away from the stories you have been telling yourself as a result of the country you live in, the birthplace you have, your parents' home, your own upbringing, your own chemical makeup, your disposition, your challenges, your nature and your nurture, which creates a whole system of voices and stories, and already things that you expect. You expect your marriage to be miserable. You expect yourself to be miserable. You expect yourself to be a slave, a prisoner. And I already hear those voices. Observe them. Don't let them become you. The Tanya always says, thoughts are garments. Machshavos are levushim. They're garments. If I don't like my suits, you know what I do? Take it off. And if I can't take it off because I'm in the middle of a speech, I keep it on, but I know that it's not me. Thoughts are not you. Thoughts are your garments. Notice them, observe them, we wear them. We can take them off. And even if they're dirty and tarnished and tainted, I may not be able to get rid of them, but they are not me. Observe your thoughts. Don't become victims of your thoughts. Observe what is happening in your brain. Observe the guilt. Observe the obsession. Observe where your mind is taking you. My Yetzer Hara will take me to crazy places to demoralize me. And I allow it to reign. By instinct, I give it free reign. But no, lech lecha, observe it. You're bigger than it. You're part of infinity. You're larger than it. Watch it. And then make the choices you have to make. Don't allow those thoughts to become the sole masters of your identity, of your reality. What made Avraham Avinu the first Jew? He's the one who heard the voice of God above all the static in life. There's so much static. But he heard the voice. Lech diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by. That made all the difference. Frost said, Avram Avinu heard. He was the first one who heard that voice. And he followed that voice. And that made all the difference. God says this to everybody constantly. God invites us constantly to become part of infinity, to be part of unity, to be who we really are, part of an incredible oneness. The question is, can I hear that voice more powerful than all of the other voices that are telling me completely different messages about who I am and who I am not? So my dearest friends, one of those old ones, but it's one of those good ones that really captures it. Thank you, thank you. The Baal Shem Tov had a student, and the student asked him if he could show him Elijah the prophet. And the Baal Shem Tov said, it's not for you. You don't need it. But he begged and pleaded and urged. And after a few years of begging, I want to see Eliyahu, I want to see Elijah the prophet. The Lord said, okay, Pesach is coming. Take a wagon, fill it up with a lot of food. Matzah, wine, fish, vegetables, fruits, chicken, and meat. The best of the best. I want you to travel to this city, and at the edge of the city there's a forest, and at the edge of the forest there's some shack where a Jewish family lives, and spend the first 2 days of Pesach with them, and you will see Eliyahu. Not bad, not a bad deal, great bargain. Fills up the wagon, the food goes to the house. Woman opens the house, says, can I stay with you for Pesach? She says, you don't want to stay with us for Pesach. We're so poor, we have no food. He says, I brought all the food. She says, we have no beds, we sleep on straw on the floor. He says, I'm fine, I just want to be with you. As soon as Yom Tov, I have no time to go home. Please, okay. She sends out her 9 children to take the food out from the coat from the wagon. They never saw so much food in their life. They are so excited and thrilled. And they have a Pesach like never before. They ate and they drank and they felt satiated and they celebrated and they ran around and they rejoiced. They never had such plenty, so much prosperity and satiation in their home. It was incredible. And this was a nice, poor, God-fearing, simple Jewish family. And he thought for sure when they're going to open the door, he's going to see Eliyahu Hanavi. Maybe the host, the owner, the Balabai, the father of those, is going to reveal himself. He's a fine, simple Jew, pretty much illiterate and uneducated, but a good to eat, a good to the shop, a God-fearing person. Second night, the same thing. The second day, goes home Chalamoyed to Meshach, Ukraine, comes to the Baal Shem Tov, says, Rebbe, I followed everything you said. I didn't see Eliyahu Hanavi. Fine family, God-fearing people, good people, but they're not Elijah's prophets. He's not Eliyahu Hanavi. Why would the Rebbe do this to me? Why did he deceive me? The Baal Shem Tov said, I want you to go back home and be quiet. I want you to go back. But this time, don't go into the house. Stay outside the house. Just stay outside the house. What do I do? You'll figure it out. He goes back. Standing outside the house. The windows are broken, so you can hear everything that's happening inside. The husband and the wife are having a conversation. You know, a Chalamoyed conversation. He turns to her and he says, you know, they always told me I'm a shlomazel. They always told me I got no mazel in this world. Look at my life, I have no mazel. But we have to admit, this Pesach I have mazel. She says, what do you mean? He says, what are the chances that a wealthy Jew carrying a wagon filled with food and drinks, the should get stuck right in front of our shack a few minutes before Yom Tov and have no choice but to spend the Seder here out with his family. For this, you have to have a mazel. And we had the mazel. Wife looks at him and says, Yankel, Herov Rein Narashah, which is what your grandmother would often say to her husband. Stop speaking rubbish. What mazel? When mazel? It was Eliyahu Hanavi. His breath stopped. He realized what the Baal Shem Tov was telling him. He was looking for Eliyahu Hanavi. Who was Eliyahu Hanavi? Who was he? Often, Baal Shem Tov was telling him, people are searching for an angel, for Elijah the prophet, for God, for their soul. Baal Shem Tov says, you're looking for Eliyahu Hanavi? I'll tell you what to do. Take a wagon, fill it up with food, and go feed 9 hungry children. And then go home and take a look in the mirror, and you will see Eliyahu Hanavi. And this is the mistake that God was teaching Moshe, Yaakov, and Yoina not to do, and it's the mistake that we have to learn not to do. You look at yourself and you say, who am I to live an extraordinary life? And the answer, my dear friends, is the question may be true, but irrelevant. Leaders are not always born leaders. You lead and you become a leader. Parents are not born parents. You parent, you make mistakes, and you become a parent. Writers become writers when they write. Teachers become teachers when they teach. Ambassadors, leaders of love become ambassadors of love when they love. Don't wait to become Eliyahu Hanavi. Too many voices against it. Fill up the wagon, feed 9 children, look in the mirror, and you'll see Eliyahu Hanavi. I could look in the mirror and see Elijah the prophet. I could look in the mirror and see the devil. Both are very true. It only depends what I do with the voice. If I see the devil, and that's how I behave, that's who I am. And if I see Elijah the prophet, and that's how I behave, that's who I become. There was a night before a bris. The rabbi was learning 3 o'clock in the morning. A couple comes into the rabbi and says, Rabbi, an emergency. What? We're making a bris tomorrow. Mazel tov. We have a war in the house. What's the war? The name of the baby. What does the father want? Moshe. What does the mother want? Moshe. Classic Jewish war. What's the war? She says Moshe for my father. He says Moshe for his father. Rabbi says, I have a brilliant idea. Do Moshe for both fathers. She says, no way. My father was a mensch. My father-in-law was a lowlife. He was despicable. He was abominable. He was codependent. He was an addict. He was a Mashiach, a Drake. He was a Rosh Merusha. I'm a Shikitz, I'm a Tuv, I'm a Nubo, and a Kaps, and Farak. My father was a great man. I'm not going to have my son named after. My father was also a Ganav. He ripped off half the city. I want him after my father. The rabbi says, the verdict is you name the baby Moshe. After all, the rabbi says, for that we wait till he grows up. See how he lives? We'll see how he lives. Whose Moshe is he named after? Which Moshe is he named after? One of the best Jewish anecdotes, in my opinion, is the baby camel who turns to her mother and says, why do we have 3 ugly-toed feet? She said, because we're not lazy animals. We don't sit and eat grass all day. We march thousands of miles. We trek through the deserts. We need sturdy feet. She says, what about these ugly eyelashes? You You go to the Sahara Desert, there are windstorms. Mother Nature protects us from the windstorms with these eyelashes. What about these weird humps? It's so hard for a shidduch, these weird humps we have on our back. Why can't it just be nice, flat hands? You think there's food in the Sahara? There's no food, there's no water. We are the only mammal that can go weeks without water, without food, because of the humps. The fat reserve in the humps dissolves and it feeds us, but it hydrates us. I get it. 3 ugly-toned feet to march thousands of miles in the desert. Eyelashes to march thousands of miles in the desert. Humps to march thousands of miles in the desert. So, Mommy, I have one fourth question. If this is the case, what in the world are we doing? Locked up in a cage in the zoo. This was the question God asked Avram when he said, Lech Lecha. What am I doing? What are you doing locked up in a cage in the zoo? When you realize who you are, what you're capable of, what your potential is, what your mission is, why do we allow ourselves to be locked up in a cage in the zoo? Hareini es marayich, hashmiini es koilech, ki koilech orev, umarech nava, the Song of Songs says. It's God's cry to every soul, show me your countenance, let me hear your voice, because your voice is pleasant, sweet, and your countenance is gorgeous. Never again allow yourself to say in your life, who am I? To be God's ambassador in this world, to change the world. Who am I to be happy, successful? Who am I to be gorgeous, complete, a leader? Who am I? Remember that promise, you are a chelik elekami mal. Never ask yourself, why do I deserve to live a life of Rachav Yudke, a.k.a. as Rechavia? Why do I deserve to live a life of Rechavia, of broadness? Yitzchak calls that last well, Rechavios, ki hirchiv Hashem lanu farinu ba'aretz. I have to be fakvetch, v'hat. What do you mean, Rachav Yudke? You are the manifestation of God's light in the world. It's not about ego, it's not about arrogance, it's not about vanity, it's about the ultimate humility of every person discovering and realizing, not only to have emunah in Hashem, but to have emunah in Hashem's emunah in you. To be able to have that emunah in you and to be able to now ask myself and ask yourself, will I at last embrace that with clarity? Will I at last become that ambassador of infinite love, of infinite healing, of infinite power? Each person in their unique corner of the world, each person with their unique circumstances, each person with their talents and gifts. Enough of the victimhood that so many of us suffer. Get rid of the victimhood. Get rid of the mentality that keeps on enslaving us. It's time to introduce a consciousness of redemption, a consciousness of Geula. The Baal Shem Tov says, Galus and Geula are always in Das. It always begins in perception. Machshava, says the Arizal, is the same letters like the Simcha. It's always a question of perception. What are the voices I internalize, and what are the voices I look at, I make space for, but I do not allow them to define my identity. So on this great night, as we come here together, and you look around and you see every single type of Jew here, brothers and sisters, not only from all over Yerushalayim, I know some people came also from other cities. I came even from the United States of America. That's how far I came. Some people who recently made Aliyah to this great land. I say to you, yes, give yourself an applause. May you, Rabbi Goldberg, and Chabad of Rechavia go from strength to strength. May Chayil el-Chayil until the great moment of Yeroah El Elohim B'Tzion with the greatest Harchava of Rechavia and Meir B'Yameinu. Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Jacobson. You truly are a hero. You've inspired us to be heroes in our own lives. Ramatai Choir, Bakasha, please entertain us once again as we conclude on a high note.
We're going to do two more numbers and then sing together with them.
Yes.
שבת.